Welcome to our fourth meeting of the Community of Practice for Schoolyard Forests. We are so happy that you are here with us. Our usual host today, Erica, is out, unfortunately, but you will hear from myself and other colleagues. Next slide, Alejandra. Today's hosts from Green Schoolyards America are Alejandra Chiesa and myself, Lauren, and with tech support from Dante Sudolewski. Next slide. To help build community, we'd love to see who all is here. So please do consider updating your Zoom name to include your name, pronouns, and your school or organization that you're affiliated with. We also encourage folks to have their Zoom video on so we can see you, but of course do what you're most comfortable with. And again, we're 3 years in to using Zoom. We want to kindly remind folks to keep yourselves muted. So thank you. Next slide. Our agenda today will include brief intros and some updates from our team. And then we are excited to have a presentation from our colleagues at Oakland Unified School District, followed by some Q&A with them. And then we will have a little bit of time for breakout rooms so that you can all meet each other and do some networking. Next slide. All right, so a little just recap of our organization and this initiative. Next slide. Green Schoolyards America is a nonprofit based in Berkeley, California. We support systems change to transform asphalt-covered school grounds into living schoolyards that improve children's well-being, learning, and play, while strengthening their community's ecological health and climate resilience. We're working to change the paradigm for school ground design, use, and management so that all children have access to the natural world in the places they visit every day. And of course, one of those places is schools. And many of the people that are here on this call today have been doing this work for many years. And so thank you for all your contributions. This community of practice, thank you. This community of practice is part of the new national schoolyard forest system that Green Schoolyards America launched last year to help school districts across the country increase tree canopy on their school grounds in places that will directly shade and protect pre-K through 12th grade students from extreme heat and rising temperatures due to climate change. This particular community of practice is also connected to the California Schoolyard Forest System, which is the first state in that initiative. And it is a free monthly discussion forum for administrators, staff, and of school districts, county offices of education, public agencies. We also welcome designers, landscape architects, students, parents, community members, tree planting organizations, anyone who is interested in helping school districts with their schoolyard forests in some way. Next slide. So a few updates. Next slide. An update from the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, CAL FIRE, is many of you are aware that they have a lot of wonderful grant opportunities. So their Green Schoolyard grant, they have extended the deadline to April 28th. So you have a bit more time for that. If you'd like to prepare, which we definitely suggest that you do, you can find a draft. You can find the guidelines for that grant on our website, and Dante will add a link to that, and that has more information for them. You can also sign up for updates directly from CAL FIRE. Next slide. We're also supporting a federal bill, the Living Schoolyard Act, which is a groundbreaking bill that will direct important federal resources towards transforming school grounds into living schoolyards. Our resource page on our website has more information about this, including the language of the bill, research on the benefits of living schoolyards, as well as templates for writing to your elected officials to support the bill, and a way for students to be involved and share their support. And then part of that, part of promoting this bill is a lecture series. We've had one session, but our next session will be on March 28th. And that's a Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time. And we'll go over mental and physical health benefits of living schoolyards and being outside. So again, all that information is in that link, and you can sign up. It's free and really wonderful. Next slide, please. All right, so I'll pass it on to Alejandra, who will introduce our speakers.
Hi everyone. My name is Alejandra Chiesa. I'm the California State Director with Green Schoolyards America. And before I introduce our speakers, I want to mention that Green Schoolyards America and the Trust for Public Land have been working with Oakland Unified for over 5 years. And it's great to see the incredible progress that OUSD has made towards embracing living schoolyards, not only building wonderful projects, but also developing systems to support and institutionalize greening and tree planting to ensure that these projects succeed over the long term. This includes policies, guidelines, increased collaboration between departments, and Kat is going to talk about all that. Now, it is my honor to introduce Kat Romo. She's the School Gardens and Living Schoolyards Program Manager. She's at the Center Education and Community Programming Team. She's been working with OUSD for over 25 years and has held many positions within the district, including teacher, instructional coach, and site administrator. We also have Roland Broach. He's the executive director of custodial and grounds. And he has been with the district for over 38 years, born, raised, and educated in Oakland Unified. And it's a pleasure to have him with us. And last but not least, we have Mark Cavalli, who's a coordinator with Buildings and Grounds. And he has been working with OUSD for 15 years, started as a carpenter and moved up to where he's now as the coordinator of Buildings and Grounds. So before I pass it on to Kat, they will do a presentation and we'll have time for Q&A. So feel free to put your questions in the chat and then we'll address them after the presentation. Kat, take it away.
All right, welcome everybody. You can switch slides. So today, as Ale spoke to you all, we'll be talking about living schoolyards in Oakland Unified. And we'll really be talking about the systems change that we're trying to embark upon in a really thoughtful manner, where we're including all of the policies, procedures, and guidelines that one would need in place in order to have sustainable systemic change for the long haul. So we're really looking at enduring change that will stand the test of time. And we'll speak also to the testament and need for collaboration and cooperation, both intradepartmentally and with other NGOs, volunteers, and partners in order to make this change lasting. Switch slides. So general flow for today will be about OUSD and the center, what is a living schoolyard, our work, our programming, our impact, what's ahead, and then a short Q&A. We can skip that. So we're going to start with a brief understanding of what the vision, mission, and strategic plan is in OUSD and how living schoolyards really fit into our strategic plan for joyous schools. So I'm going to pass it to Roland Broach. You're muted.
Thank you, Kat. Hello, everyone. So in Oakland Unified, our vision is that Students will find joy in their academic experience while graduating with the skills to ensure they are caring, competent, fully informed critical thinkers who are prepared for college, career, and community success. Our mission at OUSD is to build a full-service community district focused on high academic achievement while serving the whole child, eliminating inequity, and providing each child with excellent teachers every day. Strategic plan for joyous schools. It's just that our educators will partner to infuse joy and beauty into all learning environments, and students will be excited to learn. And as a former student, I recall being so excited to attend middle school. And back then, of course, we didn't have living schoolyards. And so I had a traumatic experience when I was playing outside on the asphalt, fell and broke my arm, which prevented me from playing on the middle school basketball team. So I just wanted to say I'm so excited about Living Schoolyards and that many kids won't have to go through what I did by falling on asphalt, which is all we really had outside at that time to play with. Thank you, Kat.
So thank you, Roland. As you can see, OUSD is an urban large district. It represents many students from all socioeconomic backgrounds, all racial ethnicities, incredibly large amount of language groups. It is a urban district and is made up of plus or minus 75 sites, campuses with about 80 schools. Next slide. So within those 80 schools, we have a lot of room to grow this movement. So starting really prior to 2000, but I'm going to start in 2000, was when the school garden movement really started to take off, I would say, in OUSD. But at that point, there were really just a handful of gardens, and I actually built one of them at Markham Elementary. At that time, there were no policies, there were no procedures. It was basically just, some scrappy folks that got some money together and would build a garden. But even at that time, I really realized the necessity for community and for interdepartmental partnership. So I did call upon buildings and grounds, I called upon facilities, I called upon Conservation Corps, parents, nutrition services, students, to really engage in the work with me so that it was a whole school and whole community movement to build that garden. So since 2000, a lot has changed. So in 2009, there was the first staff member hired centrally to help guide the school garden movement, which is part of a living schoolyard. In 2010, there was a board-approved vegetation policy that passed, and that was really kind of like the nuts and bolts of how school gardens and school greenings was to go about happening. In 2014, we had the publishing of the first draft of the board-approved wellness policy, which also included a section on healthy foods and a section on school gardens, which is key to our work. In 2017, we had our Living Schoolyards pilot partnership. So that was really when we evolved from really focusing on only school gardens to a more comprehensive and holistic approach, which included the whole schoolyard, not just one little segment of it. So within that Living Schoolyard pilot, we worked with Trust for Public Land and Green Schoolyards America, and we had 4 schools in that Living Schoolyard pilot. And that's International Community School, Think College Now, Markham, and Melrose Leadership Academy. And those were comprehensive Living Schoolyard projects, but we'll talk about more later. And then we have a 5th that we'll be breaking ground on this summer, which is Bridges. And that was really done in partnership with, as I said, Trust for Public Land and what is now the education and community programming team at the center. So then in 2018, that was there was really an expansion of supports around living schoolyards and school gardens. We started a fledgling garden steward program. At that time, we only had 10 schools represented, but they were garden stewards. And we also had 20 schools that were being stewarded with environment, food, garden programming by our food corps service members. Next slide. So in 2018, we also embarked upon a reinvigoration of our OUSD Garden Council, and that is an interdepartmental council, which we'll be speaking about more later. In 2019, we passed the first Living Schoolyard Board Policy, and that is a district board policy that supports our greening of schoolyards. And we did that in partnership once again with Trust for Public Land and Green Schoolyards America, as well as interdepartmental representatives from buildings and grounds, facilities, custodial, sustainability, etc. In 2020, we opened the new central kitchen, instructional garden, farm, and education center. And we really see that as, if you visualize a wagon wheel, we picture that as the center. And then the spokes are the schools and the school gardens and the living schoolyards. The rim is the community that holds it all together. And we really want what happens at the center to be happening at the school sites and vice versa. So in 2021, we published a OUSD School Garden Toolkit, which is really everything you need to know about OUSD school gardens. In 2022, the establishment of the School Garden Living Schoolyard program manager position came into play. That is what I do. And in 22-23, here we are, and we have published Living Schoolyard Guidelines for the district. And we have over 68 schools with gardens and with an environment food garden champion to help support those gardens. And that's over 90% of OUSD schools. Next slide. So what is a living schoolyard? As stated in our board policy, a living schoolyard is a rich outdoor environment that strengthens local ecological systems, provides hands-on learning resources, and fosters a wide range of play and social opportunities while enhancing health and well-being. These living schoolyards include trees, gardens, and spaces designed by and for students in the surrounding community. And as you see in those few photographs, lots of things take place in these gardens. At Cleveland Elementary on the lower left, they have salad days where everyone in the community gets together and celebrates salad, and where they grow salad. And the next at Fremont, students in the garden club plant plants in their raised beds. Up above at Met West, the kids harvested sweet potatoes, and they have garden internships for the high schoolers. And at the right, kids at Montclair build scarecrows. Next slide. So school gardens are important, and they're an important and fundamental part of what we do in OUSD. But as I said, we are embracing a more comprehensive approach that involves transforming our schoolyards more broadly into living schoolyards, which include not only school gardens, but also greened places with permeable surfacing, stormwater management and drainage in the form of bioswales and permeable surfacing, turf fields, large gardens, and small mini forests. So the Living Schoolyard Guidelines are helping us to codify this work. And it was collaboratively created through Trust for work with Bay Tree Designs, Green Schoolyards America, Trust for Public Land, and many departments in OUSD, as well as external stakeholders, partners, and our environment food garden champions. It was published this fall and it's being actively used in all of our new projects. So in it, you'll find an introduction, you'll find design principles, design concepts, you'll find process explanations, and a large section on maintenance and stewardship. You'll also find maintenance and stewardship resources, including design specs and a tree and plant list. You can go to the next slide. So where are we now with living schoolyards and school gardens in OUSD? There's basically 4 prongs of the work, and Mark Cavalli will speak to this slide.
Thank you, Kat. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. So living schoolyards and school gardens in OUSD. Currently, we have over 75 school gardens in OUSD. In our partnership with Trust for Public Land, we've completed 4 school sites with comprehensive living schoolyards. Kat had mentioned before, it's International Community School, Think College Now, Markham Elementary, and Melrose Leadership Academy, which was just completed. This summer, we are scheduled to do with TPL a living schoolyard at Bridges Academy, which I'm pretty excited about. It's has more trees, I believe, than the other sites that we've already completed, with many more partnership projects with TPL to come. We also have a partnership with Kaboom. And in the last few years, we've completed 3 projects with them at Franklin Elementary, Oakland Academy of Knowledge, and just recently at Global Family, with 20 more projects slated over the next few years in 4 sites, Allendale, Hoover, Lockwood, and Esperanza, scheduled to take place in the next 3 to 4 months. And also as part of our Measure Y bond, we are incorporating living schoolyard elements into these capital projects. Right now in construction is Laurel CDC, which is to be completed later this summer. Pretty excited about this one too, as the garden elements were brought in to the whole capital project from the start. And I'm pretty excited about that. And the elementary school is also receiving a large garden as part of that project. Roosevelt Middle School is in the planning stage for their modernization with a large garden remodeling at that site as well. Next slide, Kat.
Thank you, Mark. So what is a key element to district buy-in and continued success for the living schoolyards? Well, one of the key elements is maintenance and stewardship. So how do we do this in OUSD? So we do this through intra-departmental collaboration and trust building. We do this through programming support. We do this through systems, resources, and services. And we do this through partnerships. Next slide. So we'll start with collaboration and trust building. I mentioned in a previous slide, the Garden Council. So we reinvigorated that in 2018, and we've really spent a lot of time building relationships, not only professional, but also just getting to know each other as people and valuing the work that we all do. So in that Garden Council, it's an intra-departmental council made up of members of buildings and grounds, risk, facilities, the Center Education and Community Programming team, and sustainability, which represents both nutrition services and custodial. How do voices get heard in the context of the Garden Council? Well, EFG champions, as well as interested students and staff members, can submit a school garden improvement plan, and within that, their proposed project goes to the Garden Council. So EFG, yes, means environment, food, garden. So within that council, we review projects. We also talk about larger scale projects like Living Schoolyards, Measure Y plans, the Kaboom projects, and we review policies, procedures that are in draft to offer feedback and support. So another aspect of how we make these projects sustainable and supported is through programming. So at the education and community programming team at the center helps by offering slots for 10 food corps members that serve schools in the district, teaching environment, food, garden, sustaining and stewarding the school gardens, as well as carrying forth initiatives around environment, food, and garden. We also have a contracted garden specialist that goes out to school sites to help with consultations and repairs at the school gardens. We also have 4 climate corps members who engage upon education around environment, food, and garden, which helps sustain the movement in the schools when the students and the staff members come back and spread what they've learned. We also have 97 environment, food, garden stipend champions at 66 schools. So those champions receive a small stipend, and we'll be discussing what they do in a moment. Additionally, we have OUSD custodians that help to clean the Living Schoolyard grounds on a daily basis. And we have OUSD buildings and grounds members that also help to support the system with their gardeners, carpenters, painters, plumbers, laborers, and electricians. If you go back to the previous slide, you'll see in that next one. There you go. You'll see in that bottom photograph, school gardens that work with OUSD's Buildings and Grounds Department, collaborating in a workshop environment with our environment, food, garden champions. So that's part of that trust building and collaboration that I spoke about. Next slide. Oops. So the environment, food, garden champions are at 66 plus schools in OUSD, and they help steward the gardens. They help harvest the food, plant the food, share it with their communities. They help by engaging in collaborating with their staff members and students to get classes out there, and they engage with initiatives that we're promoting at the center. As you see in those photographs, those are all students at various schools that are engaging in stewardship to keep their schools clean, their school gardens upkept, and in the top right, they are also planting trees. Next slide. So other systems and resources and services that we provide, as I mentioned before, we have a school garden toolkit, which is linked in the slide deck. And that's pretty much everything that you need to know around systems and supports in our school garden work. There's planting calendars. We have a seed and start program where we grow starts for schools. They can order and pick them up on a weekly or biweekly basis. We have a school garden improvement form, where they can submit project proposals. We have trimesterly supply orders. We have a landscape materials form. We have repair request form. We have maintenance plans, consultations, repairs, rubrics, and workday share form. So we're really trying to flood the schools with resources and services to make these really viable and sustainable projects. And additionally, we have, as I mentioned, the Interdepartmental Garden Council, Buildings and Grounds work orders. We have a rubric to assess where to put improvements. And we have daily custodial support, as well as Facilitron and Civic Center permits for schools to be able to apply to have work days on the weekends and to have a custodian present at those work days. Next slide. So we can't do this alone. As I mentioned, we need We need the schools, we need volunteers, we need the staff and students, and we need interdepartmental central office folks helping. And we also need partners. So on this slide, it just speaks to the fact that it really indeed does take a village. And we have a broad coalition of partners that help us in this work, both fiscally as well as with their knowledge, their education, their resourcing, and also just being a really great vendor. So those are some of the partners that we work with. Next slide. And then how do we measure impact? So this is one area of growth for us, I believe, but we do have some items to share with you today. Next slide. So we have an Environment Food Garden monthly log, which is filled out by those 90+ Environment Food Garden champions that I mentioned. And then what we do is we crunch the numbers, we pull out both qualitative as well as quantitative information, and we put them back out to the public in our Dig In newsletter that comes out monthly in the form of our EFG monthly stories. So in that, if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll find information on what we're doing around stewardship, what we're doing around harvesting, what we're doing around tasting, what we're doing around learning. And it really does speak to kind of the whole gamut of our work. Next slide. We also have a fruit tree database that we're working on. So in the survey that we put out in 2000, we found that we had 378 existing trees in our broad district fruit tree orchard. And you'll see some of those trees represented there in those two columns. This year, additionally, we've supported, with the help of our partner Common Vision, the planting of 30 fruit trees for our January citrus harvest of the month. 24 stone fruit trees will be planted for our June harvest of the month. And then we've given out about 8 fig trees that we've grown here at the center. Next slide. And here in our comprehensive Trust for Public Land and OUSD Living Schoolyard projects, you'll see the beginning of an impact tracker. So total trees planted with the 3 projects, not including the second phase of Melrose Leadership Academy, is 171 trees. We removed 38,135 square feet of asphalt, and we helped to divert 570,538 gallons of storm water. Next slide. So what's next for OUSD in the Living Schoolyard world and realm is creating Living Schoolyard administrative regulations, at which point we hope that the vegetation policy will be sunsetted and everything will be subsumed within these regulations. We hope to create a data dashboard where we can have a district-wide public lens on how many trees we have, the types of the tree canopy, our permeable surfacing, etc. And then we really want to work on closing the loop with our green waste and really working on having, being able to grow our composting systems here at the center so that we can actually send out compost and such to the school gardens and living schoolyards to close that loop. And without further ado, we can move into questions and answers. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Kat, Roland, and Mark. That was amazing. Wonderful. We have about 10 minutes for questions. I guess I'll kick it off, and Alejandra will be supporting me too with a pretty simple question, and that's just, is there a copy of the guidelines that you published that you published in the fall? Is that available?
Yes, that is available. That's available on our center website, which we can provide for you all. And it's also available linked into the slide deck, which will be made available through the Green Schoolyards website and will be sent out to you at the end of this engagement.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well,
I believe that Dante might have put it in the chat.
Yeah, I think he did. I want to echo the thank you for sharing all this great information. There's a lot of kudos in the chat for the Oakland unified team. Just wanted to mention that. There is a question that says, question for Oakland team. In 2009, what pushed OUSD over the hump to hire a staff member focused on this? We are a bit to the left of where you were in 2000. I'm not sure what position they're talking about, but
that was the first centrally funded garden specialist who was helping to guide the work. And I wasn't in that role I wasn't in health and wellness, but I believe it was a health and wellness funded garden specialist position. So I would say it was the work of health and wellness.
Yeah. And maybe a follow-up question is, I know that I think your position was created maybe a couple of years ago. You were already at OUSD, but what prompted?
Yeah, so mine was an evolution of that position. So I believe it started as a garden specialist, and then I just came in as a 12-month teacher on special assignment that was doing the similar work to what the garden specialist was doing. And then that position evolved into the school garden living schoolyard program manager position.
Great. Yeah, there's a question also about how have you funded this over the years? How does
our work is almost our work at the center community and education programming teams work, as well as a lot of the our ability to do the trimesterly supplies and the EFG champion stipends and all of those things are predominantly grant funded.
Yeah.
And I would say, yes, our director is Michelle Oppen, is fabulous at getting grants to fund this work.
That's great. Yeah, I think another question along the lines of maintenance. How does the district balance supporting this work and academics and general maintenance and construction? I think in general, the district does a lot with very few positions. So I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit on that for other districts that are going through the same process.
Can you rephrase the question?
It says, how does the district, how do you do it all? I guess, how does the district balance supporting this work plus academics and general maintenance and construction?
Well, you said we do a lot with few positions. So Mark Cavalli, you want to speak to how many OUSD gardeners there are?
Yeah.
So yeah, we had 11 at the start of the fiscal year in July, and we've petitioned for more gardeners. So we were granted 4 more positions. So we have a total of 15 now, which is still not very many, considering we have over 80 sites that we need to take care of. And I do see a question, I think, from Melody about how do the custodians and ground folks maintaining the gardens, or do we? And I think I can answer that, Roland. For the custodians, I think they are tasked with keeping the area clean from debris and trash. And then B&G gardeners are pretty much tasked with any landscaping. And as part of the vegetable gardens, Kat has garden stewards that tend to those. And maybe she can speak more to that program.
Yeah, so we have environment food garden stewards that tend to the living, well, I would say into the school garden spaces. As far as the comprehensive living schoolyard projects, such as the ones that we mentioned that were done in partnership with Trust for Public Land, that's really, and it's a pilot, right? So that's an experiment that we're embarking upon in tandem or in cooperation with buildings and grounds. So right now, we have living schoolyard stewards essentially. So they're environment, food, garden champions that are funded through grants that were secured actually through Trust for Public Land. And they help to steward those comprehensive projects. And I then go out and or my teammates go out on a regular basis to walk those sites, to look at any issues that have arisen, whether it is with stewardship and maintenance or with how we designed and built those environments. And then we engage in monthly meetings with our partner that does the Living Schoolyard maintenance and stewardship work, which is right now is Growing Together, and Trust for Public Land and myself. And we get together and we discuss what actions need to be taken around things that we've seen in the field. So we're really working through how much time it takes to maintain and steward the environment so we can look at it, as I said, from a systematic lens to see what kind of supports we'll need in the future as we build out these programs.
And then, Kat, I would just add, in terms of time that it takes for maintenance, that it would be important to ensure that at all of the sites where you have the living schoolyards, you have a schedule built in for the custodians to clean. And then on the maintenance side, a routine for the gardeners to periodically visit those sites. So for us, we have kind of like the morning shift. Those custodians are responsible for cleaning, including those areas. And then in the PM shift, same thing there. That helps to keep the debris, trash, glass, whatever have you, away from the area. Thanks.
And then also embedded within that, with our team, we've developed a maintenance rubric. So we do consultations, and every time a colleague of mine on the team goes out to a living schoolyard or school garden, they do and best practices with the environment food champion. They do a maintenance rubric, and then we compile that data and we look to see what schools need support in what areas, and we try to support.
Great. I think we have room for one more question. I don't know. And Lauren,
yeah, I think we can ask maybe a couple more questions.
Yeah,
I think this is a fruitful conversation.
There's many more questions about funding and maintenance. Hopefully, I think you answered enough about that. I mean, there is one question here.
Oh, just about funding. I think I saw something flash on the chat that Michelle put in a dollar amount regarding grant.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Everyone can look at the chat. Yeah, I'm not able to find it, but yes, Michelle put something about dollar amount from grants that they're getting.
Found it. Yeah, she said we receive about 1.5 million per year in grants, but this includes food, nutrition, education, field trips, which we run at our Central Kitchen Instructional Garden Farm and Education Center. Our Harvest of the Month work, which I kind of glanced over, as well as supports we provide in addition to the work that I mentioned before.
And I'm going to ask one more question. Esther says, are the schoolyards accessible as school parks for communities? And I know that that's a question that may take a little more time to answer, but I don't know if you want to take that question on, Kat, or I know some schools are open to the public.
Yeah, I would say that right now that should have been on the what's next slide.
Oh,
in all transparency, that's something that we are working towards and that we want. Some of them are open, like ICS-TCN does open at certain times for the public. But that is something that we are working on trying to flesh out. And it is complicated, but it is a goal. Someone has to see the vegetation policy. I can make that available. I think that Ale should probably have that, but just note that we are trying to sunset that in replacement for the administrative regulations that we're working on. There's a lot of discussion about turf. Mark Cavalli, what do you say about turf? So sad faces around artificial turf here, and then another that just says artificial.
That's we're still debating that issue. I mean, it would take, more gardeners, more resources all around, where I think a lot of school districts are leaning towards the turf. And I know I think all our high schools have turf football fields now.
There's a question here about who is maintaining the gardens, and how are you preparing teachers to use the space and principals to require use of the space? So we talked relatively extensively about maintaining the gardens, but as Mark Cavalli said, OUSD gardeners in his department work on maintaining the landscaping spaces of the schools by and large. The custodians, both morning shift and night shift, work on picking up debris and waste materials on the yards. And the environment food garden champions are tasked with maintaining and storing the gardens, but really that's in community. So we hope, and our objective is that they're maintaining those spaces in collaboration and support from school community, whether that's staff, students, and or volunteers through community work days. And then the next part of the question was how we're preparing teachers to use this space. So through the Environment Food Garden Champion Program, we have a full day orientation that involves kind of teaching the champions on how to utilize the spaces. We also have 3 paid opportunities to do goal setting and data review, as well as collaboration on how to use their spaces. And we also have optional workshops that help to that teach a variety of topics to the Environment Food Garden champions on utilizing the spaces and utilizing the spaces with children. Additionally, last year, we embarked in partnership with Green Schoolyards America and Trust Public Land in a workshop series on for educators at our pilot comprehensive living schoolyard schools on how to use the spaces with students. And we'll be engaging on more professional development this summer with our open up to new teachers and to all teachers in OUSD as part of their summer professional development series. And then requiring principals requiring folks to use the space. We are not at that level unless the schools have a food corps member, at which point we do, that is part of the qualifying elements to receiving a food corps member, is that all classes at the schools will receive environment food garden education in the outside environment. We answered the question about funding, I believe. And it is not taking away funding for academics or maintenance and construction because we are grant funded. And then most of the the comprehensive schoolyard projects were also, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were grant funded. Like MLA and Markham and
Correct.
ICSTCN. I think the Markham, the play structure was district funded, but they were, it was time for them to receive a new play structure.
Yes. In fact, they hadn't had one in years there.
Right. I taught there. They were like the only school in the district practically that didn't have one. Is the program support available to charter schools? Currently, we offer supports to non-charters, but we do offer some supports to our child development centers. For custodians and grounds folks, is maintaining the gardens part of their normal job? If so, do you update job descriptions to reflect this work? Mark, can you answer that question?
We kind of addressed that, didn't we? I mean, the B&G gardeners are pretty much tasked with maintaining the landscaped areas. And we do not take care of the vegetable gardens.
Except when it comes to living schoolyards, we've kind of figuring out how to do it together.
Yeah.
And custodians, we are working, they do clean the grounds, and we're working on some refinement in terms of trash pickup and things from the school gardens. Are there any hurdles you had to pass through regarding district maintenance unions?
Not so far. We do have one issue with running the it's like a field sweeping broom for the synthetic turf fields that we've had a little pushback. So we're trying to work that out. We may have to create another position for that.
We're probably at time now, and we want to thank the OUSD team. I see many of you on the screen, and I also see other partners from the district, the Trust for Public Land. So thank you everyone for coming. And I'm gonna let Lauren take it from here.
The reminder also that the next meeting is on April 18th. And I'm going to put in the chat again, something that someone shared earlier in the chat about SB 499. It is a new bill. I won't go into detail, but you can read the text. It is in regarding the Cool Schools Act. So go ahead and take a look at that at your leisure. Thank you all, and we hope that you can join us next time.